Morning, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone's up in front with a mate of hers called Lottie. Hope you're all happy and healthy doing the things that you love with the people that you love doing them with. Please do me a favour, guys. Smash the like button for me like you always do. Smash the subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topic. And guys, listen, I haven't done a video on the channel for, I think, since last Friday. So apologies about my absence. A couple of distractions always pop up. Haven't really been able to do any content. I do apologise about all that stuff, but we're going to try and get back into it as regularly as we can. Guys, listen, only one thing to really talk about today, and that's what's happened over the last week. I'm going to try and condense my feelings about it into as short a time span as possible, but there's lots to go through. First and foremost, the Newcastle game, right? I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but absolute disgrace, absolute embarrassment. Get a thesaurus, look up the word humiliation, and any variation will do to describe what happened there. I've got to be honest, I feel like because of the current trend towards apathy aimed at Daniel Levy's ownership model, especially on social media, and because there is no one left for anyone else to throw mud at who as an individual who can change and direct things at Tottenham, no director of football and no manager, everything's going towards him. And I get it, I do understand it, and I think that, you know, I'm someone who is an advocate for change in the boardroom. I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea of like Enoch and Levy out, like selling the club, because I do believe that until you know what you're working with going forward, there's as much chance of having worse new owners as there are having better new owners. I do think that Daniel Levy's business side of things, the way that he creates revenue streams, is bordering on genius, and he's well ahead of the curve. You're seeing things like Manchester City now doing their own versions of skywalks because of the new FFP rules that are going to come in. But I do think his management and his focus and his decision making around the football club and the football side of things, which is ultimately what we all care about really, has been shambolic this season, absolutely shambolic. So I support the idea of him, you know, stepping back in the role. I'm not anti us selling the club. I just like to know what that looks like, who would be coming in, what their, you know, methodology would look like, or their mantras, or their acumen. But I also would tolerate, for now, in the more realistic setting, because I don't believe that Daniel Levy will step down or step away. I just want to see, I still stand by it, I want to see a clear, concise path to a new direction that is, you know, there's a phrase, if you ever studied management consulting, there's an acronym for what plans need to look like, and it's called SMARTA, SMARTA, specific, measurable, accountable, realistic, time-driven, and achievable. I'm going back 20 years now on my old management consulting studies, but I think that's right. And those are the things that you need to see about a plan for Tottenham, and I don't think we necessarily have any of that. What I would say, where I absolutely aim my disgust at Daniel Levy, is in the lack of plan B, the unpreparedness for the situation that we find ourselves in. Putting aside Antonio Conte, because I think that one was a little bit by force, although the writing was on the wall, I think, to everybody by December, January time. I think a lot of people that were open-minded saw that Conte may be checking out a little bit, and so to not have, you know, an obvious and clear plan B for management was and is appalling. And if he was someone that is trying to distance himself from those decision makings and wanted to lean into a director of football, then here's where my biggest frustration with Daniel Levy is, and that is not having a plan B around the director of football. You know, whether or not Daniel Levy knew or should have known or could have known about Paratici's style and his skeletons in his closet all the way back in 2021, such as what The Athletic ascribe, And for what it's worth, I've done a lot of research into that whole thing, and the only notable and accessible information about any wrongdoings that I could find about Paratici before 2021 was an accusation that he tried to, there was a player, Luis Suarez, and because Juventus was struggling with European player like access into their squad, the limitations around the rules, I think he tried to fiddle, or was accused of fiddling, an English language test which would have allowed him to qualify as a European citizen, etc. And there was accusations, but that was about it. And he was cleared of all charges. So outside of that, I can't find anything that was necessarily known by anybody in the public sphere about Paratici's, character or whatever. But regardless of that, let's put all that to one side. By December of last year, Daniel Levy would have known, we all knew, that Paratici was going to trial regarding his actions as director of football at Juventus, and that there was a court case impending in January. At that point, Daniel Levy should have had a plan B, just in case. In January, when he was found guilty, Daniel Levy should have absolutely had a plan B, pending the rejection of an appeal. And yet we find ourselves near 5 months later with no obvious path around who is going to replace not only Antonio Conte but Fabio Paratici. And the fact that Scott Munn has been brought in as chief footballing officer, on paper you could look at that as another stepping stone to diversifying his acumen in business away from football. But the guy doesn't come in and start officially until June. We don't have a director of football. Can you really hire a manager before you have a director of football? Can you really make decisions around the 8 players that are on loan? And there are probably 8 players in the squad that you don't particularly need until you have a manager. You can't really have a conversation with Harry Kane until you know who he'll be playing with. And so all of these things, these chicken and the eggs, could be at the starting process of being worked through had Daniel Levy planned a plan B, had he been prepared. And he should have been, because whether or not the chances of Paratici being found guilty or not guilty in his mind were low, the fact that there's any chance at all means you've had 5 months to find something and you haven't. That's where I'm angry with Daniel Levy. I'm not angry with Daniel Levy for Tottenham conceding 6 goals. I'm really not. It's not his job. He doesn't tell the players to down tools. He doesn't tell the players to how to train. What's evident to me from that first 10 minutes of the Newcastle game is that we had absolutely no idea how to play a back 4. And I don't think it's beyond the realms of reason and expectation to presume that a squad of 25 professional football players would have at some point trained and practiced and allocated some of their time on the training ground towards a different system. Now, I'm someone that said consistently, especially I repeat it a lot recently, if Tottenham are going to play a back 4 next season, then I don't think we have the squad to do it with regards a monster number 6. I don't think we have that. I think we have 6 different versions of a number 8. None of them really, I don't think, will take that role or that mantle and run with it. I think we also probably, are going to struggle with Pedro Porro at the moment. I'm not writing him off by any means. I think the guy's a very talented player and I'm sure he'll work it out. But I, at the moment, worry about the fullback situation. And so I do want us to be able to play with a back 4 at some point. I want us to have the option. But what was apparent to me against Newcastle was that when you have Perisic at left back, Porro at right back, and Eric Dyer as Romero's partner with Pape Sarr or Skip in front, it was always going to be a difficult and uphill battle. But beyond that, beyond the inability technically, the lack of preparedness for the team to play it was obvious. It looked to me like they had absolutely no clue where they were supposed to be, who was supposed to do what, and we got ripped apart. And I don't think that's on Daniel Levy either. I think that is on Stellini, and I think it's on Conte. Going back, you've had 18 months. And we heard rumours throughout the time that Tottenham players were getting bored of the repetitive nature of training sessions. Or maybe practice a bit of a different formation. Every other team in the Premier League trains for it. Every other team who have got far weaker squads than us has the ability to play back four and back five. Now, whether or not they're successful in it or not is a different question. There's all the variance in who they're playing and what the situation is and injuries and etc. But there is no doubt in my mind that other teams practice different formations, and it looked to me like Tottenham don't. And I think that's a shambles. For me, I understand everyone's hatred towards Daniel Levy. I get it, I support it, I support the protests, I always do. I said back in January, the day after you guys who were listening, who went to the training ground, I said, well done, pat on the back, done yourself proud, get your voice out there, spread your message, I love it. I also support everyone that goes to the protest at the games. I don't go to the games anymore, so you won't see me at the protests because I'm not at the games. But I think that the protests are okay and right, and I think that there'll be interesting numbers on Thursday night. I really do. We'll see what happens. I do think that Twitter has moved violently in one direction towards the Levy out thing, and I get that. But Twitter has always been a very passionate place with a disproportionately higher amount of people representing the kind of the far ends of the views rather than the people that are moderates. Having said that, I'm seeing a lot of moderates now pivot to Levy out on the back of the 6-1 humiliation. Where my disconnect is that I think that Daniel Levy deserves all the anguish for the lack of organisation and the apparent inability to define a clear plan that is smart or smarter. However, when the players step on the pitch, it's over to them, and I think there's been a distinct lack of accountability given to the vast majority of the players that were on the pitch on Newcastle. Hugo Lloris got some, I think in some part because there was rumours that he basically said he wasn't going to go back out again, and there's a little bit of no smoke without fire there. I tend to actually believe that as well. But apart from that, no one spent any real time criticising the players for a shambolic performance. Pedro Porro got a little bit, a smidgen. Christian Romero, barely any. Eric Dyer, Perisic. Højbjerg, none. Decky, Son, Kane, none. None of the senior players really got any anguish. Everyone went straight to Daniel Levy. And I think that's because there's no one else to shout at who is an individual. You can't sack your entire team. So you need to go to the next common denominator. And if it's not the director of football and it can't be the coach, then it has to be the owner. And so, to me, if Daniel Levy wants to alleviate some of that pressure, some of that stress from his inbox, then he needs to get his finger out and put together a plan that is cohesive and clearly articulated and make some appointments, starting with the director of football. Now, whether that's the guy Monchi from Seville, maybe. We haven't really heard anything more, any other names. I wouldn't be surprised if that guy, is it Hugo Viana? I forget his name, I might be saying that wrong. The Sporting director of football. It seems like Daniel Levy seems to be looking a lot at Sporting right now and being very impressed with their setup. Stronger rumours yet again that we're going to be signing Pedro Gonçalves and Manuel Ugarte from them. There's still rumours knocking around about Ruben Amorim. We might end up with a clean sweep of Sporting employees before next season starts. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, to me, guys, look, I support all of the different versions of change movements. If you are Levy out, I get it. If you just want Levy to step back, I get it. If you want him to, or don't mind if he continues, but you want a clear plan, I absolutely get it. Well, the only criticism, or not criticism, the only observation I'd have is I see the Change for Tottenham group, the one that I was getting behind and spreading the hashtag over the last couple of days. Like, to me, they've come across very I don't want to sound disrespectful, but a little bit childish with the way that they've written their posts on Twitter. They did something really childish, attacking Daniel Levy by rewriting that post that he put out there. And now they're suggesting that they'll basically get behind and support anyone's version of protest, and saying, if you want to do this, then do that. If you don't want to do it, don't do that. Do this, do that, do the other. To me, I think that is such a lack of coordination that it's going to do more harm to any one movement than good. If you are trying to represent being a captain of change, then you need to at least have a unified, singular-minded ideology. Get everyone to do one thing rather than telling everyone, we'll do whatever you want, because you're going to dilute the effectiveness of any particular message if you suggest that everyone can just do what they want. It's basically an irrelevant movement after that. So I'd advise those guys to kind of think a little bit more before they put their tweets out, because it doesn't do their movement any good. But like I say, I support you all. I mean, I'll be interested to see what happens with the protests on Thursday, and I won't even be able to watch the game, unfortunately, because I don't think I will be, because it's my mum's 70th birthday tomorrow, so I might be having a blessing by getting away from it all. But let me know your thoughts, guys. Do you agree with me that maybe there should be more attention thrown towards the players, more anger towards them, and that Daniel Levy is a bit of a, like, on a specific individual basis, a bit of a scapegoat for what happened on Newcastle? Or is it just a pent-up frustration, and ultimately the buck stops with him and the responsibility is his? It's fine either way. Do you agree with me that the next step, the first thing that Daniel Levy should be doing, is getting a director of football in, and that needs to happen now? And let me know what your thoughts are around the protests. Do you think there'll be massive protests tomorrow night? Do you think there'll be a walkout? Are you going to the game? If so, how are you going to represent your own feelings? Let me know, guys. I'll leave it there. Sorry for the long one. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, bye-bye.